The Surrender Ceremony. The greatest deception in galactic history. The massive viewing screens throughout the Nexus station displayed the same historic moment to billions of beings across the galaxy. General Marcus Voss of the Terran Defense Force stood before a gleaming podium, his weathered hands resting on the surface as he prepared to deliver what would be remembered as humanity's final defeat. The irony wasn't lost on him that this moment would indeed be historic, just not in the way anyone expected. A theater of surrender. Ambassador Kethtal of the Zentari Empire watched from his elevated platform, his reptilian features arranged in what passed for satisfaction among his species. His scaled hands gripped the ceremonial staff of victory, its crystalline head pulsing with the soft blue light that indicated Zentari triumph. For 7 long years, his people had crushed human resistance world by world, system by system, until only Earth and a handful of outer colonies remained. Today marks the end of human aggression, Kethtal announced, his voice carrying through the station's advanced translation systems. The Zentari Empire accepts your unconditional surrender with magnanimity. Your species will find peace under our guidance. General Voss nodded solemnly, his gray eyes betraying nothing of the storm brewing behind them. The Terran Defense Force officially surrenders all military assets to the Zentari Empire. We acknowledge your superior might and accept your terms. The Hidden Truth. Captain Helena Cross stood among the human delegation, her posture that of a defeated officer. But beneath her formal uniform, advanced nanotechnology coursed through her bloodstream, enhancing her already considerable abilities. Like every human in the delegation, she was far more than she appeared. The surrender document she carried contained hidden quantum encryption, transmitting final coordinates to sleeper cells throughout Zentari space. The Zentari had made one critical error in their assessment of humanity. They had assumed that human desperation would make them predictable, that their emotional nature would override strategic thinking. They couldn't have been more wrong. Seeds of Revolution. As the ceremony continued, General Voss reflected on the 3 years of careful preparation that had led to this moment. While the galaxy watched humanity's colonies fall, they hadn't seen the careful evacuation of non-essential personnel, the strategic placement of seemingly defeated military units, or the rapid advancement of human technology driven by necessity and desperation. We have prepared quarters for your leadership on Zentari Prime, Kethtal continued, his forked tongue flicking out to taste the air. You will be treated with the respect due to worthy adversaries. Your generosity is noted, Voss replied, signing the surrender documents with steady hands. Each signature activated another phase of Operation Lazarus, the most ambitious military deception in human history. The celebration begins. Throughout Zentari space, victory celebrations erupted. Military forces stood down from high alert, convinced that the human threat had been permanently neutralized. Zentari commanders began discussing the redistribution of their fleets, the colonization of human worlds, and the integration of human technology into their own systems. Captain Cross caught the subtle hand signal from General Voss as he completed the signing. Phase 1 was complete. The Zentari had taken the bait completely, believing that humanity's apparent technological inferiority and emotional decision-making had led to their inevitable defeat. The trap is set. As the formal ceremony concluded and the dignitaries began to disperse, Ambassador Kethtal approached General Voss with what appeared to be genuine respect. Your species fought bravely, General. There is no shame in acknowledging superior force. Thank you, Ambassador, Voss replied, his voice carrying just the right note of resigned dignity. I hope our people can find their place in your empire. What Kethtal couldn't know was that human agents had been infiltrating Zentari space for months, disguised as refugees, merchants, and even prisoners of war. The surrender ceremony itself was being broadcast on quantum frequencies that would trigger the activation of thousands of sleeper cells across the galaxy. The countdown begins. As the Zentari delegation departed, confident in their victory, Captain Cross moved to General Voss's side. All units report ready, sir, she whispered, her words barely audible. Excellent. Signal all commands, Operation Lazarus is now active. The real war begins in 72 hours. The irony was delicious. The Centauri had won every battle, captured every major human world, and forced humanity to its knees. But they had never understood that sometimes the greatest victory comes from appearing to lose completely. As the celebration continued throughout Centauri space, humanity's true strength remained hidden, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal that their surrender was not the end of human resistance, but the beginning of the most devastating counterattack in galactic history. The galaxy would soon learn that humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology or their numbers, but their ability to think beyond conventional warfare, to sacrifice everything for a single, decisive moment of triumph. The deception unfolds. The victory feast. Admiral Corvesh raised his ceremonial goblet high above his massive head, the bioluminescent liquid within casting an eerie green glow across his battle-scarred features. The command deck of the Centauri flagship Eternal Dominion buzzed with celebration as officers from across the fleet gathered to toast their historic victory over humanity. To the end of human defiance. Corvesh roared, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. 7 years of war, and finally, these stubborn mammals have learned their place in the cosmic order. The assembled Centauri officers cheered, their reptilian voices creating a thunderous chorus that reverberated through the ship's hull. None of them noticed the subtle changes in their human prisoners' behavior, the way their eyes had sharpened with purpose rather than defeat. The prisoner's secret. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison sat in the detention bay, his hands bound with energy shackles that the Centauri believed would contain any human. What they didn't know was that human bioengineering had advanced far beyond their intelligence reports. The nanobots in his bloodstream had already begun analyzing and adapting to the alien technology. "How much longer do we wait?" whispered the woman beside him, her voice barely audible even to enhanced human hearing. Dr. Rachel Stone, officially listed as a captured research scientist, smiled grimly. 12 more hours. Then we show them what human weakness really looks like. The Centauri guards paid no attention to their prisoners' quiet conversations. After all, what could defeated humans possibly be planning? They had been thoroughly searched, their technology confiscated, their weapons destroyed. They were harmless. The first crack. Deep in the ship's engineering section, the first signs of trouble began to manifest. Centauri technicians noticed minor fluctuations in their power grid, small anomalies that their automated systems quickly corrected. Chief Engineer Vaxnor dismissed the readings as minor glitches caused by the celebration's energy drain. He couldn't have known that Dr. Stone's medical implants were actually quantum processors, designed to interface with and subvert alien technology. Every system scan, every routine diagnostic, allowed human technology to burrow deeper into Centauri infrastructure. The awakening. As the celebration continued, Admiral Corvesh received an urgent communication from Centauri Prime. The High Council wanted to discuss the rapid deployment of occupation forces to former human territories. The war was over, but the peace would require careful management. "Admiral," his communications officer announced, "we're detecting some unusual quantum signatures from the human prison blocks." Corvesh's massive head turned toward the officer, his yellow eyes narrowing. "Elaborate." "It appears to be some kind of encrypted transmission, sir. Very sophisticated, beyond anything we've seen from human technology." The revelation. In the detention bay, Lieutenant Commander Morrison's eyes suddenly blazed with an inner light that had nothing to do with the dim prison lighting. The nanobots in his system had finally cracked the Centauri security protocols, giving him access to their internal communications network. "Dr. Stone," he said, his voice carrying new authority, "it's time." Dr. Stone nodded, her own implants activating with a soft blue glow visible beneath her skin. "Initiating Phase 2 of Operation Lazarus. All human assets, this is your wake-up call." The trap springs. Across the Centauri fleet, dozens of prisoners simultaneously shed their facade of defeat. Energy shackles that had held them for months suddenly deactivated, their quantum locks overridden by technology the Centauri had never encountered. These weren't ordinary humans, they were enhanced operatives, genetically modified and cybernetically augmented for exactly this moment. Admiral Corvesh's celebration turned to chaos as alarms began blaring throughout the ship. "Report," he bellowed, his ceremonial goblet crashing to the deck. "Sir, we're detecting massive system intrusions across all fleet vessels. The humans, they're not what they appeared to be. The hunter becomes the hunted." Dr. Stone stood in the center of the detention bay, her arms spread wide as holographic displays materialized around her. The primitive, human technology was revealing itself to be far more advanced than anything the Zentari possessed. "You made one critical error," she said to the stunned guards who had drawn their weapons. "You assumed that surrender meant defeat. You never considered that it might mean preparation." The Zentari guards fired their energy weapons, but the beams passed harmlessly through what they now realized were sophisticated holograms. The Real Dr. Stone was already moving through the ship's ventilation system, her enhanced physiology allowing her to navigate spaces that would be impossible for unaugmented humans. The truth revealed. Lieutenant Commander Morrison's voice echoed through the ship's communication system as he took control of the Zentari networks. "Attention Zentari forces. For 7 years, you believed you were fighting a desperate, technologically inferior species. You were wrong." On the command deck, Admiral Corvesh watched in horror as his tactical displays showed the true scope of human capabilities. Ships that had appeared destroyed were powering up from hidden positions. Colonies that had seemed abandoned were revealing massive defensive installations. The entire human defeat had been an elaborate deception. "Impossible," Corvesh whispered, his scales shifting to the pale yellow of fear. "Our intelligence was perfect. We monitored every human transmission, every technological development." "You monitored what we wanted you to monitor," Morrison's voice replied. "While you were conquering our outer colonies, we were building something you never expected. Not just weapons or ships, but a new kind of warfare. One where defeat becomes victory, and surrender becomes the ultimate trap. The new reality." As the Zentari fleet struggled to comprehend the magnitude of their miscalculation, human ships began decloaking throughout the system. These weren't the crude vessels the Zentari had been fighting, they were sleek, deadly craft that incorporated technology decades ahead of anything the aliens had encountered. Dr. Stone materialized on the command deck, her form shifting from hologram to physical presence as her adaptive camouflage systems deactivated. "Admiral Corvesh," she said calmly, "I believe it's time we discussed new terms for this conflict." The hunter had become the hunted, and the Zentari were about to learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their numbers, but their ability to think beyond the conventional rules of war. The counterstrike. The moment of truth. Colonel James Hartwell stood in the command center of the hidden human base, buried deep within the asteroid belt of the Kepler 442 system. For 3 years, this facility had masqueraded as a mining operation while secretly coordinating the most ambitious military operation in human history. The massive holographic display before him showed the positions of Zentari forces across 7 star systems, all blissfully unaware of the storm about to break over them. "All units report ready, Colonel," announced Sergeant Nina Torres, her fingers dancing across the quantum communication console. "Operation Lazarus is fully activated across all theaters." Hartwell nodded grimly. The moment they had planned for so long was finally here. The Zentari had celebrated their victory for exactly 47 hours. Now it was time to show them what human determination really looked like. The Zentari response. War Master Zendiari paced the command deck of the Zentari fortress ship Crimson Talon, his massive claws clicking against the metal flooring. The reports flooding in from across the fleet made no sense. Human prisoners were escaping everywhere, their technology was far more advanced than intelligence had indicated, and worst of all, ships were appearing on sensors that shouldn't exist. "How is this possible?" he demanded, his voice a low growl that made his subordinates flinch. "Our intelligence network was perfect. We knew every human ship, every weapon, every strategic capability. War Master, his tactical officer reported, voice trembling, we're detecting massive energy signatures from the human home system. It appears they've been hiding an entire fleet. Zendiari's eyes flashed with rage. Impossible. We've had Earth under constant surveillance for 2 years. Nothing could have escaped our notice. The revelation of human ingenuity. Colonel Hartwell smiled as he watched the Zentari fleet scramble to respond to threats that seemed to materialize from nowhere. The aliens had never understood humanity's greatest advantage, their ability to adapt and improvise under pressure. Torres, initiate Phase 3. Show them what we've really been building. Throughout human space, camouflaged installations began powering up. Asteroid mining facilities revealed themselves as heavily armed battle stations. Seemingly abandoned colonies activated shield generators and defensive arrays that had been hidden for years. Most shocking of all, Earth itself began to transform. The hidden fleet. Sergeant Torres activated the primary display, showing the space around Earth in real time. The Zentari had been monitoring the planet constantly, confident that humanity's homeworld was defenseless. They were about to learn how wrong they had been. The planet's surface began to shift and change as massive camouflaged structures rose from beneath artificial terrain. Entire mountain ranges opened to reveal shipyards that had been operating in secret for 3 years. The moon itself split apart, revealing it to be a hollow shell containing humanity's most advanced warships. "My God," whispered a technician, "we actually pulled it off." "The Zentari never understood human psychology," Hartwell replied. "They thought our emotional nature made us weak. They never realized it made us willing to sacrifice everything for a single moment of victory." The first strike. War Master Zendiari watched in horror as his tactical display filled with red markers indicating hostile contacts. In the space of minutes, the human fleet had grown from a handful of defeated stragglers to a force that outnumbered his own vessels 3-1. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the human command ship," his communications officer reported. "Put it through," Zendiari snarled. The holographic display flickered to life, showing Colonel Hartwell's calm face. "War Master Zendiari, I am Colonel James Hartwell of the Terran Strategic Command. I believe you have some human prisoners that belong to us." "This is impossible," Zendiari responded. "Your fleet was destroyed. Your colony surrendered. Your homeworld is defenseless." "Were they? Did they? Is it?" Hartwell's expression didn't change. "War Master, you've been fighting shadows for 7 years. We've been preparing for this moment since the war began. Every defeat, every retreat, every surrender was designed to bring us to this point. The battle begins." The first human ship struck without warning, their advanced stealth technology allowing them to approach within point-blank range of Zentari vessels. The alien ships, designed for overwhelming firepower against what they believed were inferior opponents, found themselves outmaneuvered by craft that seemed to bend the laws of physics. Sergeant Torres coordinated the assault from the command center, her enhanced reflexes allowing her to process information at superhuman speeds. Strike Group Alpha has disabled the Zentari command ship. Strike Group Beta is engaging their support vessels. All units report successful first contact. The Zentari had built their military doctrine around the assumption that they would always possess technological superiority. They had never developed tactics for fighting an enemy that could match or exceed their capabilities. The psychological warfare. Colonel Hartwell had studied Zentari psychology for years, understanding that their rigid hierarchical society made them particularly vulnerable to confusion and demoralization. As the battle unfolded, he began broadcasting messages directly to individual Zentari ships. "Zentari warriors," his voice echoed through their communication systems, "you have been deceived by your own leaders. The humans you thought you had defeated have been preparing for this moment. Your war masters sent you to fight an enemy that no longer exists. We are not the weak, desperate species you conquered. We are something new, something your leaders never imagined." The turning point. War Master Zendri realized that his fleet was not just losing, it was being systematically dismantled by an enemy that understood his capabilities better than he understood theirs. The human ships moved with perfect coordination, their weapons targeted with surgical precision at the weak points in Zentari armor that shouldn't have been known to anyone outside the Empire. "How do they know our vulnerabilities?" he demanded. "Sir," his tactical officer replied, "they're not just exploiting our weaknesses. They're creating new ones. Their weapons are adapting to our defenses in real time." The truth was even more devastating than Zendri could have imagined. The human prisoners his forces had captured hadn't been interrogated for information, they had been gathering it. Every ship, every weapon, every tactic the Zentari had used had been studied, analyzed, and countered. The new reality. As the battle raged across multiple star systems, it became clear that the war everyone thought had ended was just beginning. The Zentari Empire, confident in their victory, had scattered their forces and reduced their alertness. They were paying the price for their assumption that humanity was finished. Colonel Hartwell watched the tactical display with satisfaction. Phase 3 was proceeding exactly as planned. The Zentari were learning that human weakness had been their greatest strength, and their surrender had been the ultimate victory. The galaxy was about to witness the birth of a new power, one that had been forged in the fires of apparent defeat and tempered by the determination to never again be caught unprepared. Revelations of power. The Fleet Admiral's Gambit. Fleet Admiral Robert Kane stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, humanity's most advanced warship, watching as Zentari forces across the galaxy scrambled to respond to the coordinated human assault. The ship itself was a marvel of engineering, incorporating technology that had been developed in secret during the years of apparent defeat. Its hull shimmered with adaptive armor that could reconfigure itself in real time, while its weapon systems utilized principles of physics that the Zentari had never encountered. "Admiral, we're receiving priority communications from Zentari High Command," reported his communications officer. "They're requesting immediate ceasefire negotiations." Kane smiled grimly. 3 days ago, the Zentari had been celebrating their total victory over humanity. Now they were begging for a chance to negotiate. "Put them through, Lieutenant. Let's see what they have to say." The Zentari desperation. High Counselor Veltar appeared on the main display, his usually imposing reptilian features marked by obvious stress. The golden scales that denoted his high rank had dulled to a sickly yellow, and his compound eyes darted nervously as he spoke. "Fleet Admiral Kane," Veltar began, his voice carrying none of its usual authority, "the Zentari High Council requests an immediate cessation of hostilities. Surely we can resolve this misunderstanding through diplomatic channels." "Misunderstanding?" Kane replied, his tone deceptively calm. "Counselor, there's no misunderstanding. For 7 years, your people waged war against humanity. You conquered our colonies, enslaved our people, and forced us to surrender. The only misunderstanding was your assumption that surrender meant defeat. The scope of human preparation." Commander Lisa Park, Kane's tactical officer, highlighted the strategic display showing the current state of the conflict. Red markers indicated Zentari forces, while blue showed human positions. The galaxy map told a story that would have been impossible to believe just days earlier. "Counselor," Park interjected, "perhaps you'd like to understand the scope of what you're facing. While your forces were celebrating their victory, we were implementing the largest military deception in galactic history." The display zoomed in on various star systems, showing the transformation taking place across human space. Planets that had appeared barren were revealing massive shipyards. Asteroid fields were deploying hidden weapon platforms. Even the space lanes themselves were being reshaped by gravitational manipulation technology that the Zentari had never imagined possible. The technology gap. High Counselor Veltar's eyes widened as he studied the tactical display. "This is impossible. Our intelligence networks monitored every aspect of human technological development. You possessed nothing approaching this level of sophistication." "You monitored what we wanted you to monitor," Kane replied. Every piece of technology you observed, every military capability you catalogued, every strategic asset you destroyed, it was all part of an elaborate deception. While you were conquering our outer colonies and accepting our surrender, we were building something that would make your empire's technology look primitive. The quantum leap. The truth was even more remarkable than Kane was revealing. Human scientists, driven by desperation and the need to overcome seemingly impossible odds, had achieved breakthroughs that had accelerated their technological development by centuries. The pressure of fighting an advanced alien civilization had pushed human innovation beyond all previous limits. "Show him the Philadelphia Project," Kane ordered. Commander Park activated a new display, showing footage from the outer rim of the solar system. A massive space station, larger than any structure the Centauri had ever built, materialized from what had appeared to be empty space. Its surface was covered with arrays of unknown technology, and energy readings from its power core registered at levels that shouldn't have been possible. "This is the Philadelphia Station," Kane explained. "A quantum manipulation facility that can alter the fundamental properties of matter and energy. It's been operating for 2 years, hidden in a pocket dimension that exists parallel to normal space." The psychological breakthrough. High Counselor Veltar's composure finally cracked completely. "You're saying that humanity has developed technology that surpasses our own? That's impossible. We've been spacefaring for millennia. Your species has barely existed for more than a few thousand years." "Counselor," Kane replied, "you made the mistake of assuming that age equals wisdom, and that experience equals innovation. You've been using the same basic technologies for so long that you've forgotten how to truly innovate. We've had to reinvent everything from the ground up, and we've done it with the motivation of a species fighting for its very survival." The new weapons. Commander Park activated another display, showing the battle currently raging in the Centauri system. Human ships were engaging Centauri vessels with weapons that defied conventional understanding. Energy beams that could phase through shields, gravity wells that could crush entire formations, and most disturbing of all, weapons that seemed to predict and counter Centauri tactics before they were even implemented. "How is this possible?" Veltar whispered. "We've been studying your military doctrine for 7 years, Kane explained. Every battle, every tactic, every strategic decision has been analyzed by our quantum computers. We don't just know what you're going to do, we know what you're going to do before you know it yourself." The ultimatum. Fleet Admiral Kane leaned forward, his expression hardening. "Counselor, the Centauri Empire has a choice to make. You can continue this war and face the complete destruction of your military forces, or you can accept the new reality of galactic politics." "And what reality is that?" Veltar asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. "Humanity is no longer the weak, desperate species you conquered. We are the dominant military power in this galaxy, and we will not be returning to the subordinate position you tried to force upon us." The revelation of intent. The display shifted to show a comprehensive view of the galaxy, with human forces positioned at strategic points throughout Centauri space. It was clear that the current offensive was not just a rescue operation or a retaliation, it was a complete reversal of the galactic power structure. "You're not just fighting for your freedom," Veltar realized. "You're fighting for dominance." "We're fighting for survival," Kane corrected. "The Centauri Empire has proven that it cannot coexist peacefully with humanity. Therefore, humanity must ensure that the Centauri Empire can never again threaten our existence." The new order. Commander Park highlighted the final phase of Operation Lazarus, showing the planned deployment of human forces throughout the galaxy. The scope was breathtaking, a complete restructuring of galactic civilization with humanity at its center. "This is what 7 years of apparent defeat has bought us," Kane said. "Not just the technology and weapons to fight you, but the strategic position to replace you. The galaxy is about to learn that sometimes the greatest victory comes from allowing your enemy to believe they've already won." High Counselor Veltar stared at the display in shock, finally understanding the magnitude of what had been done to his people. The Centauri had not just lost a war, they had been systematically outmaneuvered in the greatest strategic deception in galactic history. The age of Zentari dominance was over. The age of humanity had begun.